The jungle was thick, wet, and full of strange sounds. Human explorer Jace Carter walked slowly, holding his scanner in one hand and a knife in the other. His boots sank into the muddy ground with every step. His shuttle had crashed 2 nights ago after an ion storm fried the engine. He was alone. Or so he thought. The planet was called Verdaxis 3, a wild world marked uninhabited in the system records, but nothing about this place felt empty. The trees moved even when there was no wind. The sky had 2 suns and the heat made it hard to breathe. Jace had built a small camp near the edge of a shallow river. Today he had gone deeper into the forest to search for food, water, or maybe parts from the crashed ship. Then he heard it. Sound so soft it almost wasn't there. A cry, not an animal's roar, not the call of a bird. This was something else. Weak. Broken. A voice. Jace stopped. He turned his head slowly, hand tightening on the knife. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. The jungle grew still. He waited, then he heard it again, just barely. It came from the east behind a thick curtain of vines. Jace moved carefully, pushing branches aside. He stepped over a fallen log, then ducked under a giant leaf the size of a table. Then he saw her. At first he thought it was a statue, but then it moved. A woman, or something like a woman, curled into a ball half covered in mud, shaking. Her skin was a pale bluish color, her arms thin and bruised. She had no clothes, just patches of dry leaves and wet mud clinging to her. Her hair was long, dark, and full of dirt. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly with fear, and they locked onto his. She didn't speak. She just stared. Then, slowly, one hand reached out. She grabbed the edge of his boot with weak fingers. Please," she whispered, her voice cracked and dry. Jace didn't move right away. He had seen many things in space. Pirates, smugglers, even hungry alien beasts, but never something like this. A creature so human-looking, but so broken. He crouched down, slowly. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't respond. She was shivering now. Jace took off his jacket and carefully placed it over her shoulders. She flinched but didn't pull away. The moment the cloth touched her skin, she broke into silent sobs, her body shaking harder. He looked around. No signs of a crash pod, no signs of a trail. She wasn't from his ship. So where had she come? From? Jace made a choice. "I'm taking you back," he said. "You're safe now." He picked her up gently. She was light, too light. Her bones felt fragile, like she hadn't eaten in days. As he walked through the forest with her in his arms, her head rested weakly against his chest. She didn't speak again, but she didn't let go. Back at the camp, Jace placed her near the heater unit. He wrapped her in a clean blanket and gave her water from his purifier. She drank with shaking hands, then curled up in the blanket and closed her eyes, but didn't sleep. Her body was too tense, too afraid. Jace cooked some warm soup and placed the bowl near her. She stared at it for a long time, then slowly took one spoon. She ate like someone who expected the food to be stolen any moment. Jace watched quietly. Who was she? Why was she out there all alone? What happened to her clothes? What happened to her hope? That night, while she slept lightly under the blanket, Jace sat near the fire, sharpening his blade and checking the scanner. No signs of others. No signals. No movement. Just him and her. A silent stranger with mud on her skin, fear in her eyes, and a mystery deeper than the jungle around them. She didn't know who he was, and he didn't know what she had escaped from. But one thing was clear. She was not safe before. But maybe now, she had a chance. The next morning, the jungle fog hung thick around the camp like a curtain. The alien woman lay curled under the emergency blanket, still wrapped in Jace's jacket. Her breathing was shallow but steady now. She had survived the night. That in itself felt like a miracle. Jace Carter sat near the fire, not moving too much. He didn't want to startle her. She had spent the night half asleep, waking every hour with wide, scared eyes. Every sudden sound made her flinch. Every rustle in the leaves made her tighten the blanket around herself. He offered her some water again. This time she took it with her own hands. Her fingers still trembled, but she didn't spill. That was progress. He crouched beside her and spoke, slowly, gently. "My name is Jace," he said. "Jace, can you say anything?" She blinked, then shook her head. No words. Not yet, but she understood. He could see it in the way her eyes followed his lips, the way her shoulders eased slightly when he didn't come closer. He pointed at himself again. "Jace." She stared, then pointed at him. "Yeah." Her voice was dry, cracked like old paper. But he smiled. "Yes, that's me." She didn't smile back. But something flickered in her eyes. A light that hadn't been there before. Jace spent the morning building a second shelter wall from fallen branches, giving her space and privacy. He hung an extra cloth sheet for cover and placed some soft moss in the corner as a pillow. She watched from the fire, still wrapped in the blanket. Still silent, but her eyes never left him. He placed a metal bowl near her with warm soup. No meat, just root broth and a few crushed herbs. She sniffed it carefully before tasting it. Then, to his surprise, she finished the whole bowl. He gave her more. This time she nodded, a silent thank you. He didn't ask her questions. Not yet. He had seen the scars, long, thin marks along her back and arms, not from trees or accidents. These were controlled, clean, made by tools, not nature. Something, or someone, had done this to her, and she had escaped, barefoot, naked, in mud. Whatever her story was, it had nearly killed her. Now she was here. With him. That night, Jace sat with his scanner trying to repair the signal booster. Still no messages. No signs of rescue. But he wasn't thinking about himself. His eyes kept drifting back to the girl. She had pulled the blanket tightly around her and tucked into the corner of the shelter. Her body was thin and fragile, but for the first time she seemed calm. Her breathing slowed. She was sleeping. At some point during the night, a light drizzle began to fall. Soft raindrops tapped against the shelter roof. Jace checked the fire. Still warm. He turned to look at her one last time before resting, but she wasn't in her spot. He jumped to his feet, then saw her, standing in the rain, head tilted up, letting the water run down her face. She looked like a spirit. Barefoot. Thin. Glowing faintly under the stormy light. She opened her arms. Just a little, as if trying to feel something long forgotten. Freedom. Jace walked toward her slowly. He didn't speak. She didn't move. They stood there in silence, two strangers in a jungle far from home. Then she turned slightly, and for the first time, her lips moved, a whisper, so soft he barely heard it. Name, Sira. He blinked. "You said your name?" She nodded once, her voice cracked again. "Sira." Jace smiled. "Okay, Sira. You're safe here." She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. Later, as she returned to her blanket, Jace sat by the fire, mind spinning. She had a name now. She trusted him, at least enough to speak. But the biggest question still burned in his head. Who had hurt her, and would they come looking? For now, he pushed the thought away. She didn't need questions. She needed peace. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Sira slept without fear. By the third morning, Sira no longer hid her face when Jace looked at her. She still didn't speak much, only her name, and sometimes a soft, "Thank you." But her eyes were clearer, her body stronger, the fear in her movements less. Still, she didn't smile, not even once. Jace had tried fixing the comms again, but the jungle's magnetic storms made every signal flicker out. He cursed under his breath and tossed a broken wire aside. Sierra, sitting cross-legged by the fire, tilted. Her head, signal, he explained, trying to call home. She didn't respond. But after a moment she rose, walked over to the edge of the shelter and crouched in the dirt. Then, with her finger, she began to draw. Jace watched silently. Her hands moved with precision. She wasn't doodling. She was writing, not in letters, but in shapes. Patterns, circles, stars, lines that pointed in directions. In under a minute, she had drawn a system map, and Jace recognized it. 3 moons, a red sun, an orbiting research station, and one blinking X on a jungle moon. This moon. He knelt beside her. You escaped? From there? She nodded. Then, using both hands, she made a gesture. Wrists crossed, then pulled, apart sharply. Prison, he asked. She nodded again. Then slowly turned her hand and pointed to her head, her eyes, her chest. Experiment? He guessed. Her lips pressed together, a small nod. Jace felt a cold knot in his stomach. She had been locked up, studied, modified, maybe tortured. Now she was here, and whoever ran that station, they probably wanted her back. Sierra kept drawing. Now she etched cages, rows of them, stick figures inside. Then one stick figure bent the bars. A tiny arrow pointed out. She circled that figure. Her. She had escaped. Alone. Then she drew more shapes. Bad ones. Shadowy blobs with long arms. Soldiers? Jace stared. You're saying they're still out there? She drew a circle with a slash. Through it. Not yet. But they would come. The fire crackled beside them. A breeze shook the leaves outside. Sierra erased part of the drawing, then carefully made another shape. A large one. With wings. A shuttle. No. His shuttle. She looked at him, then pointed to the fuel cell casing nearby. Her meaning was clear. We need to leave. Jace sighed. We can't. He pointed to the broken parts, the missing engine node, the damaged nav core. I don't have the parts. Sierra seemed to understand. Her shoulders sank. Then she nodded once and drew a symbol near the edge of the dirt, an ancient Valkyrian glyph, one used to mark danger zones. She drew it beside the orbiting station, and then beside the jungle they were still in. Later that day, Sierra walked around the camp slowly, studying everything, the tools, the wires, the scanner. She touched the med kit, the light panel, and even the emergency beacon. Then quietly, she sat beside the solar panel and closed her eyes. Jace didn't know what she was doing, but the lights blinked for just a second, brighter than normal. He walked over. Are you controlling it? Sierra opened her eyes, breathing hard. Her nose was bleeding. She wiped it without emotion and nodded. Jace sat down next to her. Back in the lab. They gave you something, didn't they? Sierra hesitated, then whispered. They took something, replaced with this. She pointed to her head. Think too loud. Lights. Obey. Jace rubbed the back of his neck. She wasn't just a victim. She had abilities now, but at a cost. Pain. Isolation. Fear. He offered her a protein bar. She ate it quietly, then pulled the blanket tighter around herself. That night, she didn't draw. She just sat under the stars. Jace watched from a distance. She wasn't crying, but her eyes looked lost. He sat beside her and said nothing. After a while, she leaned her shoulder gently against his, not out of weakness, but because she chose to. They didn't speak, but their silence was heavy with meaning. They were no longer just survivor and stranger. They were connected by something deeper than language. And in the dirt behind them, the map she had drawn was slowly being covered by falling leaves. But Jace had already memorized every mark. Because now, he knew. She wasn't safe here, and neither was he. The hunters would come, and next time, they wouldn't just be searching. They'd be tracking. The jungle winds howled that night. The temperature dropped, and clouds moved in like gray ghosts. The sky flashed once, lightning, far off. A storm was coming, but Jace Carter didn't care about the storm. He was watching Syrah. She sat under the emergency shelter, knees pulled to her chest, eyes fixed on the fire. Her pale blue skin looked almost silver in the dim light. Her hands gripped the blanket tightly and her breathing was shallow. She was shaking, not from the cold, from something deeper. Jace placed a thermal wrap near her feet. He didn't say anything. She didn't ask. This had become their routine, but tonight felt different. The quiet was heavier. The shadows were longer. Syrah looked up at him slowly. Her lips parted, and for the first time since she told him her name, she tried to speak again. They dream inside me. Her voice was weak, dry, and broken like shattered glass. Jace turned to face her, surprised. What? She tapped her temple. Memories, not mine. He crouched beside her. From the lab? She nodded. They put pieces from others. Test, results, weapons, names, screams. So many, her voice cracked. I am not just me. Jace didn't know what to say. He couldn't imagine what it was like, to carry memories that weren't your own, to feel other people's pain like it was your own blood. Syrah closed her eyes. Her hands trembled harder. I break inside, she whispered. And if I break, I burn everything. Suddenly the fire flickered. The heat pulsed unnaturally. Syrah's fingers glowed faintly, just for a second. Then the glow faded. Jace stood slowly, giving her space. Hey, you're okay. But Syrah covered her face. No. Not okay, I hide, I run. But they smell me. They come. Who? He asked softly. She looked at him with glowing, tear-filled eyes. The ones who made me. They want their weapon back. Silence. Then thunder rolled far in the distance. Later, Jace sat alone outside the camp perimeter, watching the trees sway. He carried his rifle, though. He knew it would be useless if someone really wanted her back. He thought about what she said, about burning everything. Could she really do that? He had seen the lights flicker when she closed her eyes, the heater reacting to her emotions, even the solar panel responding when she sat near it. Whatever was done to her in that lab, it had changed her, and it wasn't just in her head, it was real. Suddenly, movement. Back at the shelter, Jace rushed in, weapon raised. He found Syrah standing, eyes shut tight, arms stretched outward. The fire was blazing higher than it should. Her body glowed brighter than ever before. She was shaking, mumbling in a tongue he couldn't understand. Then her knees buckled. Jace caught her before she hit the ground. She opened her eyes slowly. I saw them. Who? She pointed toward the south. Landing soon. You had a vision? Not vision. Signal. They are near. Jace didn't wait. He opened his scanner. The readings confirmed it. A dropship had entered the atmosphere. No beacon. No ID. No response to standard hails. It wasn't rescue. It was them, the ones looking for her. He turned back to Syrah. She was sitting up now, holding her head. They'll find us, she said. He knelt in front of her. Then we'll make sure they regret it. Syrah looked at him, not with fear, but confusion. You protect me? You stay? Jace gave a tired smile. Yeah, I'm not leaving you. Why? You helped me too. You reminded me I'm not just surviving, I'm choosing. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, You're strange. You're not wrong, he replied. With a grin, Syrah's glow dimmed. but her expression changed, softer now. She reached out and touched his wrist. Her fingers were cold, but the meaning behind the touch was warm. Trust. Jace spent the rest of the night preparing traps, sharpening metal shards, rigging the old power cell to overload. Sierra watched from the side, quiet but alert. "You don't have to fight," he told her. She shook her head. "I do. I won't run again." Just before sunrise, Sierra sat by the fire again. The flames reflected in her eyes. Her hands stopped shaking. She looked at Jace and said clearly, "Thank you." Her voice was still soft, still fragile. But this time it didn't break. He sat beside her. "No need to thank me," he said. "You're not a weapon. You're not some broken thing." He paused. "You're Sierra. And that's enough." The wind picked up. Far in the distance, a shadow passed over the trees. The hunters were coming, and this time, Sierra wasn't afraid. She was ready. The jungle didn't make a sound. Not the wind, not the birds, not even the insects. It was as if everything alive was holding its breath. Jace Carter crouched behind a wall of thick roots, one hand on his rifle, the other gripping a remote detonator. His eyes scanned the trees, but he didn't need to see. He could feel them coming. They weren't just soldiers. They were hunters, trained, silent, methodical. Not here to talk. Not here to ask questions. They were here for Sierra, to take her back, or kill her where she stood. From the edge of the camp, Sierra watched the sky with narrowed eyes. Her hands were tight against her chest. The soft glow beneath her skin had returned, but this time it didn't flicker. It was steady, controlled. Jace crawled back to her position. "They're close," she nodded. 4, maybe 5. "You sense them?" Thoughts, loud, hungry, cold. Jace didn't ask how she could hear thoughts. By now, he had learned to believe her. He handed her a small comm disc. "If anything happens, press this. It sends a flare. I'll find you." She stared at it, then slowly pushed it back into his palm. "No run. I fight." Jace looked at her, really looked. No longer the mud-covered girl curled in fear. No longer. Shaking or silent. She stood tall, barefoot, calm, and for the first time, free. A low humming sound broke through the trees. Jace turned his head sharply. "There," he whispered. "They're landing." Through the gaps in the jungle canopy, a black dropship descended slowly, sleek, silent, shaped like a blade. It didn't land with force. It slid into position like a predator slipping through water. The hatch opened. 4 armored figures stepped out. Their suits were matte black, no markings, no voices, no emotions. One of them raised a device. "Target's trail confirmed. She is within 200 meters. Orders remain, retrieval or termination." Their boots didn't crunch leaves. They glided. They had done this before. Many times. Jace took position on a high branch. The trap lines were already set. Wire thorn loops, motion-triggered spikes, and a makeshift grenade made from his last power cell. But deep down, he knew. These weren't just mercenaries. These were cleaners, sent to erase mistakes. Sierra was their mistake. Below, Sierra moved through the trees like a ghost. Her glow dimmed to hide her, but her presence pulsed in the air. Electric, alive. She didn't carry a weapon. She was one. But still, her heart pounded. Not from fear, from memory. Flashes returned. Cold metal rooms, voices shouting numbers, hands pressing her down, light in her eyes, darkness in her mind. She gritted her teeth and whispered to herself, "Not again." The lead hunter stopped. His visor blinked red. "She's near." He pointed toward the river bend. But when they reached it, the trap sprung. A metal spike burst from the ground, striking one hunter's leg. He fell with a grunt, suit sparking. Jace opened fire, short, controlled bursts. One hit the shoulder, another missed. They scattered. One returned fire. But Jace rolled behind a rock. The blast missed him by inches, the air filled with smoke, sparks, and shouts, and then Sierra stepped out. Her skin glowed again, brighter this time. Her eyes were pure light. The remaining hunters turned their weapons on her, but she didn't flinch. She raised her hand, and the rifles jammed, all at once. The lights on their suits blinked out, one by one. They froze, like statues mid-step. "No, more cages," she said softly. A wave of pressure exploded outward. The trees bent, the earth cracked. The hunters were thrown back, slammed into roots and rocks like dolls. Jace ran to her, breath ragged. "Sierra, are you okay?" She was on her knees, shaking, nose bleeding again. But she looked up at him and said, "They can't take me now." He helped her stand. She leaned against him, tired, but proud. The dropship beeped. Emergency recall. It rose from the ground, empty, retreating, defeated. Back at the camp, Sierra sat near the fire, wrapped in her blanket. Jace cleaned the blood from her face. "You didn't just scare them," he said. "You broke them." She didn't smile, but she looked him in the eyes and whispered, "You stayed." He nodded. "Of course I did." She touched his hand. "Then I will stay too." The jungle was quiet again, but not like before. Now, it felt like peace. The second wave came after sunset. Jace had feared they'd retreat, but cleaners never give up. If the first team failed, the next would be worse. It started with the birds. At dusk, they flew away, hundreds of them, leaving. The treetops empty and silent. Then the forest lights began to flicker. The natural bioluminescence dimmed. Sierra sat by the fire, staring into the darkness. Her back straight, her hands folded, her body still glowing faintly, but she didn't speak. Jace stood nearby, checking the rifle's charge. It wasn't much. He'd already used most of his power cells on traps, but he wasn't worried about weapons anymore. He looked at Sierra. She was the real weapon now. "You can still run," he said gently. Sierra looked up. Her voice was calm. "You didn't run when I was nothing. Now that I'm something, I won't run either." They stood together near the edge of camp. The fire behind them flickered low, casting long shadows across the leaves. Then, a sound, low, metallic, distant. The rumble of mech boots. 5. Dark figures emerged from the trees, taller, bulkier, armored from head to toe. These weren't soldiers, they were extractors. Machines built to capture, not kill. Each held a long stun spear crackling with energy. One of them raised a scanner. "Subject located. Orders, immediate retrieval. Human is expendable." Jace raised his rifle. "You'll have to get through me first." The lead extractor stepped forward and swung his stun spear. The blast sent Jace flying back. He hit a tree and rolled, gasping. Sierra screamed. But it wasn't fear. It was rage. Her body lit up like a comet. Her eyes turned pure white. Her hair lifted in the air. The fire behind her roared. The extractors turned their weapons toward her, but it was too late. Sierra raised both hands. The wind stopped. The air twisted. The jungle groaned. A shock wave pulsed out from her chest, rippling like a wave through the ground. The extractors froze in place. Their armor cracked. Sparks exploded from their visors. One by one, they collapsed. Dead systems. Dead silence. Jace crawled back to his feet, staring in awe. "You did that?" he whispered. Sierra blinked. Her glow faded. Then she collapsed. He caught her before she hit the dirt. Blood ran from her nose and ears. She was shaking hard. Too much power, too fast. Jace carried her back to the shelter, set her down gently, and wrapped her in every blanket he had. She opened her eyes once. "I stopped them," she said weakly. "You did. But you hurt?" Jace chuckled, wiping blood from his lip. "Nothing serious." She closed her eyes again. "Good, I want you to be there when I wake up. And then sleep, not unconsciousness, not death, just Sleep. Jace stayed up all night. He cleaned the wounds on her arms, reset her broken shoulder, covered the shelter opening with more vines. Kept the fire alive, not because he had to, because he wanted to, because Sierra mattered, not as a survivor, not as a weapon, not even as a miracle, just as herself. By morning, the sun cut through the jungle fog. Birds returned, wind rustled the trees. Again, and Sierra opened her eyes, alive, weak, but alive. Jace smiled. Hey, you made it. She blinked slowly. Didn't think I would. You're tougher than you look. Sierra laughed, soft, broken, real. You stayed. Of course, I did. She sat up slowly, holding her side, then whispered, They won't stop. I know. More will come. We'll be ready. You'd fight again? For me? Jace nodded. No one should ever be hunted for being different, and no one who saves a life should have to run from their own. They sat together, in the golden light side by side, not as protector and alien, not as weapon and warrior, just two souls bound by trust. And in that quiet moment, Sierra looked at the sky and whispered, I never had a home, but maybe I've found one. 2 days passed. The jungle, once a place of fear, had turned quiet, peaceful. Sierra had not left the shelter. Her body still ached. Her mind burned when she tried to do too much. But her light was no longer wild. It no longer flickered with fear. It glowed with choice. Jace stayed close. He rebuilt what he could, patched holes in the camp walls, repaired the broken solar cells, cooked simple food, set up more signal flares. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Every time Sierra looked at him, she knew he was still there, still protecting her, still choosing her. On the third morning, as the sun pushed through the trees, the sky cracked, open a distant thunder, a golden streak, a ship. Jace saw it first. He ran to the clearing and raised his scanner. Signal confirmed. Terran Rescue Unit, 6 UN-registered dropcraft human design. Friendly. He exhaled slowly, then smiled. They found us. He ran back to the shelter. Sierra was sitting up, wrapping her arms around her knees. She saw his face and tilted her head. Rescue? Jace nodded. They're real this time. Her face didn't change. Not fear, not joy, just silence. Will they take me? They'll ask. You can choose. She looked down. I've never been asked before. The drop craft landed in the open clearing. A small crew stepped out, 3 humans in bright rescue suits, scanning the area carefully. Their weapons were holstered, their eyes full of surprise when they saw her. We received your distress call, sir, said the lead responder, nodding at Jace. But you didn't say anything about a survivor. She's not just a survivor, Jace said. He turned to Sierra, who now stood beside him, shoulders back, chin high, barefoot but proud. She's the reason I'm alive. The team stared. One of them, a medic, stepped forward. Do you understand me? He asked gently. Sierra nodded once. Yes. Her voice was soft, but steady. Jace stepped beside her. She was part of something bad. An experiment she escaped. They tried to erase her. The medic frowned. Is she dangerous? Jace didn't answer. Sierra did. I was made to be, but now I choose not to be. The medic's eyes widened. He nodded slowly. We'll notify command. You'll both be taken off planet for evaluation, safety checks, debrief. Jace turned to Sierra. Do you want that? She looked at the ship, at the sky, then at him. I want to go where I'm not hunted, but not if I must lose you. Jace smiled. You're not losing anything. They boarded the ship. Inside, the team gave them food, clean clothes, medical scans. Sierra sat near the observation window, watching the jungle disappear below. The place she nearly died. The place she was, reborn. The ship broke through the clouds and entered orbit. Sierra turned to Jace. Will they ask what I am? Maybe. Will they fear me? Probably. Will you? Jace took her hand, gently. Never. At the Terran outpost, they were welcomed carefully. Quiet rooms, clean beds, curious stares, gentle questions. Sierra answered them all. Sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, but never with shame. A week later, Jace was brought before the High Command. They asked him everything. What happened, who she was, what she did. He answered without fear. She saved me. She protected me. She chose peace. The officials exchanged looks. One leaned forward. She's not human. Why protect her so strongly? Jace looked them straight in the eyes. Because humanity isn't about what you are, it's about who you choose to be. They let her stay. Under observation, but not in chains, not in a cage. Jace visited her every day. One morning, he brought her something small, an old earth seed inside a clear sphere. It's called a wildflower. She held it gently. It will grow if you let it. She looked out the window at the outpost garden. Then I will. Weeks passed. The officials grew less curious. The guards stopped watching so closely. One by one, people stopped seeing her as a threat. They started seeing her as something else, as hope. And one evening, just as the twin moons rose, Sierra stepped outside with bare feet and pressed her hand into the soft soil of the garden. She planted the wildflower seed, covered it, watered it, and whispered, "They tried to bury me, but I wasn't soil. I was a seed." Jace stood behind her, smiling. "They didn't see what you could become." She looked up at him. "But you did." They stood there, hand in hand, as the stars began to shine. Not hero and alien, not rescuer and victim, just two souls who had found each other. In the middle of nowhere, through pain, fear, and silence, they had built something stronger than survival. They had built trust.